Hello, Seiiti Arata. Today we'll talk about effort and consistency. Whatever your plan for a new life is, a completely new year or the best year of your life, you will need consistency to accomplish the actions you need to do. Consistency has always been important for anyone who wants to accomplish goals, but today, with so many choices ahead of us, consistency has become even more important. Just think about your parents' generation or your grandparents' generation. There was less information available, fewer choices, and usually after you choose a field of study, you would follow your career until retiring. Consistency was almost automatic. But today, it is very common for people to enroll in one college, interrupt their studies, enroll in a completely different college, and often, if they graduate, they may end up working in an area unrelated to the degree received. In this world of great change, where new options come up all the time, consistency is very important as we have been trained to switch areas of interest all the time. Consistency is being persistent in what you're doing. There is a famous quote saying that madness, the definition of madness, is doing the same action several times expecting different results. Well, this means that if you're not reaping the results you want, you need to change your attitude, your approach. But just be careful because this sentence is often misunderstood. Imagine your goal is to cut down a tree, you strike an axe and the tree doesn't fall. Then you strike again and again and again, the tree does not fall. This does not mean that you must abandon your plan. If you don't have a chainsaw available, the only tool you have is an axe. You just have to keep your sharp axe, knowing how to do the right blows, and simply have consistency to persevere, because you keep advancing. Sooner or later, your result will happen. The tree will fall. I like to use this example of the tree and the axe because in this case, it is not crazy for you to insist on the same action. If you hit the tree again and again, expecting different results, it will happen. Certain types of goals, the result will only happen after a certain time by consistently applying the same action. The problem is that nowadays people don't have the patience to reach the result. They see a transformation on TV or on the internet, they want the same result quickly, but without the effort. For example, if you start a diet to lose weight and you want to lose that fat that has been accumulating over the years just by doing 1 week of dietary change, this is a sign of lack of patience. If you start learning a foreign language, you want to be fluent in just a few days, of course you are out of patience. Yes, there are techniques for you to reap results more quickly, to speed up your results. In addition, there are also techniques that are proven to be inefficient, so they will not bring you the desired results. That's why you shouldn't be doing those things. You should identify the practices that you should no longer do. But you must keep away from what is easy. Staying away from what is easy, that's an essential concept for you to have a good life. I already talked about this before in arata.se/there are no shortcuts. In the future, I want to still talk more about my critical stance about these life hacks, but that's going to be for another day. Basically, when you are addicted to looking for shortcuts, you stop practicing the necessary training that you need to develop and acquire important skills. Life hacks are no substitute for skills. You need to have the consistency of focusing on the fundamentals. If you really want to sharpen the axe, you must push repeatedly and press the blade against a hard rock. There will be a need for dedication, a habit, a ritual that you'll be performing, and that is not easy. We must be willing to face resistance and friction. Just keep this symbology in mind. You need to be prepared for physical, mental, and emotional exertion. Just look at the world of sports and you see that no great athlete who is well known for high performance has come up without dedication, consistency, and effort. In any area of human activity where there is great competition, the most consistent ones will stand out. Resilience will help you. Anxiety and laziness are the enemies of consistency. Unfortunately, we are living in an anxious society that wants instant results and wants more convenience and less effort. Let me just give you 2 examples: reading and eating. There is a laziness nowadays to read some article on the internet. You do a Google search, You discover there is an article, but you are lazy to click, to read, because you know that after clicking that link, then you're gonna have to accept cookies and have to agree with the privacy policy. Then have to say no, you don't want to receive notifications from that site. Only after that, after all these clicks, the article might appear, not entirely, because you have to click again to read more, right? To expand the text, and also have to be closing the pop-up ads. So, of course, laziness takes place. Another example, the time to eat. Today, it is no longer good to find a supermarket like frozen food or meals that you can put on the microwave. We already have those vegetables that are already washed and cut. People want food delivery, and they're even lazy to order the food delivery because they don't want to open the door to receive the delivery person, or even to choose what to order in the app. I don't know, is that your case? Leave a comment here with your stories of laziness. And why is there such laziness? Why do we need shortcuts, more convenience? These facilities of modern life do not allow us to develop consistency naturally. Evolutionary human nature itself wants us to save energy and should not do activities that cause fatigue. Observe the children or even young animals that live running and tripping and jumping. All of that is influenced by hormones that give these young mammals this stimulus to learn movement, to gain balance, especially with all this physical activity to develop the muscles they need for adulthood. But once adulthood arrives, it will be a moment to save energy, to find more convenience, to be more quiet. Corporations know this, and they take the opportunity to offer us products and services that save us time and effort. Now, I'm not saying that companies are evil, they have a strategic plan to make us lazy. No. The goal of companies is just to make a profit, and the companies understand that what we want, what we need is to have solutions that meet our needs. Therefore, you first need to be aware that in adulthood, you are living in an environment that will favor your laziness and will not provide you the proper encouragement for you to be a consistent person. So, this awareness is the first step. And this is why, in episode 142, we see the importance of understanding the difference between process goals and outcome goals. You can go to arata.se/hello142. You cannot be the type of person who wants to achieve a certain result if you're not enjoying, you're not willing to perform the process. Consistency requires practice and skill. Many people come to me for business mentoring, and when I talk to them, I see that many of them have studied hard. They follow influencers, entrepreneurs who share business tips, business ideas. They have many books they have read. But these people have a lot of knowledge, but no practice. There are people who have never implemented anything. They don't yet have a product. They don't have a service that can be sold. They don't have a marketing campaign that is selling right now. In other words, it's no use you spending hours and hours learning theory if you don't put it into practice. No matter what you know, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with what you know. It is no use saying that you already know the mental triggers for persuasion to make people want to buy. If you never close the sale, a real sale in your life, if you never talk to a real customer, I'm sorry, you don't know anything. True knowledge happens when you put your theory into practice. Otherwise, you're just going to be a marionette on a stage, a person who talks a lot but accomplishes little. Consistency can't just depend on motivation. That's another common mistake, to let consistency depend only on motivation. The problem with relying on your motivation is that some days you have motivation, there are other days you don't. Because of this, you should also, above all, build routines and habits that put you in this automatic mode to overcome the lazy days, the days that you don't have motivation. And within our Better New Year course, I bring you in an organized way how you will achieve consistency in different areas of your life. This is a very important step. You need to be specific to know which areas of your life you need more consistency to become the person you're meant to be. You need to raise your awareness so that you can better objectively evaluate what you have been able to accomplish so far, and also the other aspects where you have not yet achieved the desired results. When you make this assessment, it is very important that you make the difference between the real reasons and what are your excuses. You need to be clear about the process of confabulation, rationalization that we tend to undertake that keep us away from the truth. Only with good information and real and objective data we can make better choices. And in this process, you have to be very careful about the ego traps that will try to keep you away from the truth. And it is guaranteed that you will stumble along the way. That is normal. Your defects will appear. Many obstacles will have to be overcome. The process of finding your solutions to your shortcomings is part of your path to development. And Daniel Kahneman shows us that we have this loss aversion, right? We want to avoid the feeling of pain associated with losing. That's why often we make incoherent, irrational choices. Take, for example, the case of a company that's not making a profit. Instead of accepting the fact that the market is not suitable for the product, the entrepreneur insists on the error, increases the financial loss. The right thing to do would be to close the company until finding something completely different, either a new product or a new market. The lesson here that you have to be careful is about how your brain works. There is a tendency that we don't recognize our own mistakes. What your life would be like after 1 year of consistency. Let's just finish by going through a little imagination exercise. If you need to, take a break, okay? I'm going to ask you to imagine what your life would be like in 1 year if you would maintain the consistency to realize your big dreams. If you were to enter the best year of your life, what would you do differently? What results would you like to achieve? What is that you no longer want to have repeating in your life? What are the areas in your life where you need to become a better person so that you can also offer a better life to those around you? What are the areas of interest in which you have already acquired, accumulated a lot of information, but perhaps too little practice? Above all, what actions do you need to take consistently in practice in your daily life to bring into the concrete world those dreams that are just in your mind today? Imagine what you're going to be like in 1 year if you remain consistent in making the right decisions, to be consistent with the good foods that you eat, the exercises you practice, the books you read, being consistent in the actions you take, the relationships that you maintain, the way you manage your finances. Try to answer those questions in writing. Now it's time for you to prioritize and put together realistic planning within your calendar. You can prioritize, of course, what is most important to you, or if you feel it's necessary, you can prove to yourself it is possible. You can prioritize activities that are simpler and smaller, because when you complete these activities, you increase also your level of motivation. And throughout the year, it is important that you examine how your planning is and how dependent you are on your motivation. That's what I call the motivation audit. You have to be sure that your plan is good. It does not depend whether or not you are motivated. Year in and year out, something I always hear when someone describes themselves is that, they have potential, they're intelligent, but the problem is that they just can't dedicate themselves enough, in other words. This is lack of consistency. If you're consistent throughout the year, you can be sure that you will live the best year of your life in any area. It can be in work, it can be in relationships, in your own health, in love, in finances. Make sure consistency is what will bring results to you when you're doing what is right, what should be done. And for those of you who are interested in having the best year of your life, I invite you to know our online training, Better New Year, by visiting arata.se/Better New Year.